Hello, everybody, and welcome to Puck University post-regional by a week and a little bit more, pre-Frozen 4 edition. I'm your host, Chris Lynch. Joining me on this edition of the show, Jason Scales of puckingoff.com, and also with me at InsideHockey.com. He recently put together a very, very good piece on the team that inspired him to love college hockey, which was the 1989 Harvard University Crimson, the national champions that year, defeating Minnesota in overtime of the national championship game at the old St. Paul Civic Center with the old clearboards. Jason, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Always happy to have you on. Before we get into the proceedings of the weekend, you did a very, very nice job on that piece, and considering how we like history on this one for this sport, I just wanted to give a brief overview before we shuffle people off to go and take a look at your stuff that you put together, because you've been doing a documentary on that team, and this is just the written form of it. So just talk about that project and your experience of being a Harvard fan back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a 13-year-old kid, growing up in Boston, we had the Boys and Girls Club were a big part of pretty much everything we did, and a lot of times college students would come and work at the club as part of like their community service or just getting them ready for their major or whatnot. And one of the guys that worked there, Brian Schwartz, just asked me once if I wanted to check out Harvard hockey, and I said, sure, why not? I liked hockey at the time, and I don't even remember which was my first game, but I went to so many that year and just fell in love with the team, and it helped that they were good. You know what I mean? It wasn't like going to see a 4-win team. They were like at the height of their dominance of the sport and everything, and yeah, it just being the 30th anniversary of it, I just thought it was a story worth telling, because they were so good, and a lot of people don't even know that Harvard won a national title in hockey, so it just kind of blows my mind when people don't know that. They're like, really? They won one? Yeah, they had best team in the country one year. I mean, multiple years, but, for that one year, they were the best. So I haven't really started the actual documentary part as much because the writing as you saw, it was pretty thorough, and it took a lot longer than I'd anticipated between editing and transcribing interviews and everything. So, but I do plan on still getting that video done.
Sure. I mean, those kinds of projects, they always take a long, long time to get to do, but they're some of the most rewarding stuff that you'll ever end up being a part of. And it's my dad's a Harvard alum as well, so I've said this a number of times over that if I hadn't have gone to BU, but if I still had ended up being a college hockey person. Because the other schools I was considering were Ithaca, which I don't know if I would have been allowed to be a Cornell fan, considering my dad is a Harvard person. But I might have ended up going to Ithaca. And I also was considering Fairfield, and they had folded their hockey team already, and Sacred Heart is just getting to a point of regular competition. So I think that So I think if I hadn't have ended up being a BU person, I almost certainly would have been a Harvard hockey person. It's interesting to note with them is that Harvard is, and we'll spend a little bit of time on them only because we got to see them this weekend. It's a really interesting program that Harvard is a school that doesn't exist for athletics. It doesn't exist to serve that. It just happens to have a really good history, and I think a lot of people we'll talk about Tommy Amaker and their basketball team and their football game against Yale. But I genuinely think that hockey program is the best thing that they have to offer. And some of the personalities you got to meet. I mean, Teddy Donato, who was the MVP of the Frozen Four that year in '89, and also the head coach of the team now. I'm sure you got to talk to Bill Cleary. Just talk about some of the personalities and the stories that you got to unearth while getting to interact with these people, because it's one of the best teams that the sport ever produced, and one of the best teams that's ever crossed the way. Even though I don't think, did they win the Beanpot that year? Or was that
they did?
They did win the Beanpot that year. Very good.
They won it that year. They beat BC in the opening round, and then they had a nice 9-6 shootout with BU in the final.
I was about to say, wait, they must have beaten Northeastern in the final, but wait, that matchup through fluke of numerical chance, even though there's been 67 attempts at it, there has never actually been. Somehow.
No, never been to BU. I mean, a Northeastern Harvard final.
Yeah, I don't get how that math hasn't ended up
pretty
happening.
Crazy.
Yeah. But
crazy.
Yeah,
it was Harvard and BU that year. I was at that game, and I can remember being a 13-year-old kid. One of the players put a stick over the boards after the game, and in a tussle with another teenager, like over the stick. I can't remember whose stick it was, but I remember I got it. And then as they were bringing the Beanpot out, my friend and I were able to touch the Beanpot, and then we were on the cover of the program the next year. It was, you know what I mean? It was pretty funny. All that from just one game.
Did you find that program? Do you have that program, or?
You know what? No, I have seen it in the past, and just never hung on to it. And then I did look for it again in research for the documentary. I have found the media guide and everything, but not the following year's Beanpot guide.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find it.
Yeah,
I'll come across it. I'm not too worried about it. In time I'll track it down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, the personality. It's funny. Everybody says that when you meet your idols, sometimes you get disappointed. And meeting players from this team and speaking to some of them over the phone and whatnot. I mean, hockey players are just different anyway. They're more humble, more down to earth, as you know.
Yeah.
But getting to meet these guys, Lane McDonald was my favorite, my ultimate. You know what I mean? And getting to talk to him on the phone for almost an hour and hanging out with him the night of the viewing, it's just he's even better than you could imagine. He's just so nice, so genuine, and do you know what I'm saying? It's just it's amazing just to have that much cachet and still be just the nicest guy in the world.
Sure.
Which also speaks to his leadership quality, and which is what everybody discussed whenever they talk about him.
Yeah. I mean, for him also, he also happened to be a really good hockey player who won the Hobie Baker that year as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and played it on the Olympic team.
Yeah.
In '88.
From hockey hotbed Tulsa, Oklahoma. Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he moved around a bit because his father played a dozen years or so in the NHL. So
mm-hmm.
I think it was kind of wherever the father went, the family went. But I think most of his time was spent in Wisconsin or something.
Mm-hmm. He went to. He was a prep star at the University School of Milwaukee. And for that senior year, he played in 32 games, had 31 goals, 29 assists for 60 points. And by the way, Teddy might have won
didn't even lead the team.
God, that was
what I mean?
That was a fun team.
Peter Savaglia had even more points, but Lane had the name.
Yeah. Well, it helps.
Yeah.
And also, funny thing about that team is that there's two, at least reasonably Frozen Four coaches who came off that team. Teddy, of course, at Harvard, and also Kevin Sneddon of currently of the University of Vermont, who is, by the way, very fortunate that Stefanos Lekis is coming back for another year at Vermont. I hope for his sake he gets more scoring so that he doesn't have to bail his team out every night, and maybe they could win some games, and we'll talk about some of the other departures. But it's interesting how that school has really prepared a lot of people for professional success and has prepared people for, be it on the ice or off. I had some people, overheard some people joking that from some of these Ivy League hockey teams, Teddy was he was probably the most successful professional hockey player off that team, and he was not making anywhere near as much money as some of his teammates were off of, being Harvard alums and doing what Harvard people do. So
right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. It's in doing that article, I didn't really deal so much with what the guys went on to do since then or what they do now. Mm-hmm. The Athletic Steve Buckley hopped in on the viewing party that we had when mm-hmm. we watched the championship game.
Yeah, he's a great writer.
And his article, I know. His article, which also came out yesterday as well, he delved more into what they do now, and it's pretty wild. Like, there's billionaires on the team. I think they have 2 billionaires. God knows how many millionaires.
Only 2 billion. Only 2 billionaires. Harvard is getting lazy out here now.
I know, right? Well, I mean, they were also busy shooting pucks, so I guess they couldn't, fully get their full potential when it came to earnings.
Sure, yeah. I mean, my friend Mike Gradone, who was one of my bosses with the Brewster Whitecaps, the team in the Cape Cod Baseball League, also a Harvard alum, and he at one point made a joke to me about how Harvard guys will get so few opportunities to overachieve, and that '89 team was an opportunity for them to overachieve. So of course they took that opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what's funny is, like, I went into the story of it being like a David and Goliath type of thing. But the more I did it and the more I researched and spoke with people, like, they weren't really that much of a David. I mean, a Goliath. Yeah, whichever one. David. Mm-hmm. I'll be all right. They weren't, you know what I mean? Like, because they were stacked. They were absolutely loaded. And, because I posed that question to people that played against them. And, like I said it to Marty McGuinness, and he was almost incredulous, like, seriously? David? They had Lane McDonald, Alan Bourbeau, Peter Savagula, C.J. Young. And I was just like, I know. When I say it, it sounds terrible, but when you think that it's an Ivy League school where it's academics first, athletics second, maybe even third, you know what I mean? Beyond making money and doing all of that, all that whatever it is Harvard people do. I don't know. I didn't go to Harvard, so yeah, and then you figure, like, only one other team has won it since from the Ivies, and that's Yale. Mm-hmm. That was almost the full 30 years later, and only, aside from Yale, only one other ECAC team, that being Union, which was the year before or the year after.
It was the year after,
so it's
in 2014.
Not like, yeah. So, I mean, for all the success that the ECAC has had on a yearly basis, I mean, it hasn't been the ultimate success. Mm-hmm. So it is a bit David and Goliath still. But, mm-hmm. Like, they were just absolutely loaded.
I guess that actually serves as a good transition point. I'll throw in one last plug on Inside Hockey, and I think you posted something on your own blog on Pucking Off about this team. I think you'll start working on a documentary about that team as well. Go check his stuff out. I will do my best to include a link in the show notes when we get all that up and running. I'll include it to the IH piece because I write there as well, and it might send you over to some other stuff that I've done as well. Might send you over to my very wrong predictions, but we're not going to touch on the wrong predictions first. we're going to get to the stuff that we got right first, and let's get to from the past weekend. And it was a fun time. It really, really was a great weekend up in Manchester for the Massachusetts Minutemen, your other team that you're a fan of in large part because you take classes there now, but also what a team, what a program, what an incredible unit that they have. A pair of shutouts over Harvard, who admittedly wasn't as strong this year as they have been in priors, but they're still a good team, and over the two-time reigning Big Ten champion and over the two-time Frozen Four appearance participants and the reigning runner-up from last year's Frozen Four, Notre Dame, and they beat them both convincingly in what we felt I think would be the most what would be the most competitive regional. And the Notre Dame Clarkson game, which was spectacular as well, notwithstanding, it was straightforward, and it was honestly kind of a blowout in both senses, in both performances that were put on. So yeah, it was a crowning moment, and I think you could feel it in the building on both days when after they beat Harvard, you felt like they had the chance to do something special. It was a 4-0 shutout, which Philly Lindbergh was the goaltender for both games. And then the second game, I was in Providence for the start of the game. I left and because Cornell was blowing out Northeastern. We'll talk about that prediction, how bad that was in a little bit. I mean, we both were wrong on that one. So at least it's such a shame that from our preview episode, Josh Cummins not available to come on and chat it up with us because he has to go cover the baseball bean pot because he also does baseball stuff, I guess, whatever. So he's not here to face the music. What?
Ducking his predictions. He's just ducking his predictions.
Well, he was 1-4 for Frozen 4. We were 2 for 4. So.
No, he went 2-4. I went 1-4.
Oh, you were the 1-4.
Ducking, it's me. Yeah, I should be ducking them.
Well, at the very least, yeah, you wrote our stories about those. I just took the fancy pictures for at least the first day of that stuff. So. Just from the perspective of a UMass fan, because I can't count myself as a UMass fan. I can only count myself as a guy who predicted that they would have a really good go of it this year. So just have the floor and pontificate on the crowning moment, because that's what it felt like to me, a coronation of a Magic season with still potential for more. But where we are right now, you have the floor. Go ahead. I'm going to mute the mic, and you have fun speaking for the UMass people.
No, I mean, I think for me the biggest thing is like how you said, crowning achievement or crowning moment. I don't want it to be just that, that they made it, that they're one and done. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I think this team can do it. NCHC notwithstanding, I just think that UMass is the most complete team from front to back, and it doesn't matter who they play. I think just the way that they won, when they show up, they can beat anybody. They can suffocating defense, high-powered offense, outstanding goaltending. I mean, Lindbergh. It's surprising me that, and I understand why they didn't, because Murray was playing so well throughout the season, and then Lindbergh left for World Juniors and was sick, so he didn't get quite the volume of work that he deserves. You can see 2 shutouts against 2 very solid offensive teams speaks volumes to how good he is. He didn't see a lot of work. Especially against Notre Dame, which is what really, I think, bodes well for UMass. Because they just utterly destroyed Notre Dame. It wasn't even in doubt. Even though the first period was 0-0, they just carried play throughout the entire 60 minutes. It was... quite a thing to witness, and the atmosphere in the building, it really was, as somebody said, Mullen Center North, as if just everybody was transplanted from Amherst to Manchester. Mm-hmm. And I expect to see more of that. I know, the ticket prices will probably be outrageous, but I would imagine that Buffalo will be Amherst West. And, for good reason. It's maybe a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You hope not, because you want to have this type of success on a year-to-year basis. And, I think even Jeff Jackson alluded to it in the post-game press conference when he said, I guess he had interviewed at UMass back in the day when they were starting their program again. Imagine how that would have went if they hired him. But, it you could see what the potential was at the school with the funding and the fan base, and it really is a sleeping giant, like Coach Carvel likes to call it. I mean, I can remember going to games probably 2009, 2010 at Northeastern or BC for Hockey East playoffs. And the teams weren't that great. They qualified because everybody qualified. But they, there was just a ton of UMass fans. And they were vocal. I mean, nothing compared to now, but that should tell you the quality of what they can do when the product is on the ice, and boy, do they really have the product on the ice this year.
Yeah, a few numbers.
As you and I discussed, like Mario Ferraro is not even mentioned, and he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he's only not mentioned because Cale Makar is the best defenseman in college hockey and the best player in college hockey. But Ferraro is a number one defenseman on every team other than his current one. Harvard will be only because Adam Fox is coming back. By the way, Adam Fox looks like he's going to return for his senior season, so very good Harvard. But just to highlight the disparity in play against Notre Dame, the shots in the first period, 12-6 in the first. The second period is where UMass won it. 16-2 were the shots in that second period.
2 shots, yeah. And I think only one of them was a legitimate scoring opportunity shot. You know what I mean? Like, you would think where there was only 2 that you would remember them both, but I think there was only really one serious scoring opportunity for Notre Dame in the second, where the other one might have just been like throw it on net and see what happens.
The three goals that UMass got in that frame: Jake Gaudette in the power play, John Leonard on a beautiful highlight in which he sliced apart the reigning Richter winner in Cale Morris. By the way, he did not play a bad game in the slightest. 30 saves on 33 shots faced. He played a great game. And also the other, the third goal, they got a thing of glory by Cale Makar, a rocket shot, which I drove up. I started driving up with about 20 minutes on the clock before the UMass puck dropped against Notre Dame. And when I got in, when I looked for parking spots, UMass started scoring. And so I walked into the building shortly after John Leonard's goal. And then before I got up to press row, I found one of the doors to I got into the building, and I walked in and looked through the door. UMass had the face-off, and I watched Mark Del Gaizo fake out a guy with the shot, passed it over to McCarty, fired that missile, and it really was something spectacular to watch that and to see the reaction in the stands. And once I watched that, there was still a part of my brain saying, Notre Dame is a program coated in magic pixie dust. Don't let up. But there was still that piece in the back of my mind knowing this game's over and knowing that UMass is not going to lose this game. The question of that, the drama became whether or not they were going to fulfill and complete the shutout. It is the first time since 2012 that any team has won a regional without giving up a goal. The last team to do it, BC, on a way to the national championship when that 2012 BC team was an absolute machine that year. I think they trailed the back half of that year. I think they trailed twice in the last 2 months or so of the season. They trailed at 2 different points. I think for a grand total of something like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, no, they were loaded. Mm-hmm.
And this team has a similar feeling of, and they got to beat great teams. They really have to beat spectacular programs. And I think this is one of the more interesting pieces of the Frozen Four pie that we have to look at right now. The Frozen Four: UMass, Duluth, Providence, and Denver. And 3 of those teams at the start of the season, most people would have said, yeah, I buy them being in the Frozen Four. I mean, Providence won a national title in 2015, much to my chagrin, and much to the begrudging acknowledgement of people who don't want Providence to be playing in the Providence Regional, but you still have to go out there and play, and they played and they won. So there's that. Providence won in 2015. Denver won in 2017. And I thought that was the best college hockey team I'd seen ever. I still think that. UMass, if they win, they have a chance to overtake that, but they still have yet to get there. And Duluth, who won it last year on a team that it looked like at different points that they had lost their opportunity. And yet they, like the Washington Capitals, only won their national championship when they weren't supposed to. So it's really quite I just find it interesting how in a year loaded, chock full of upsets and chock full of teams that weren't supposed to be here, 3 of the Frozen Four teams were supposed to be here at the start of the season, and then there's UMass, who wasn't supposed to shuffle off the Buffalo. I just find that to be a really interesting wrinkle in this story. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, and looking at this foursome, it is, some years you have that one team that's kind of a question mark. Do they really belong? Can they really punch their weight? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To me, I could, think maybe Notre Dame in 17.
Yeah.
Like they were good, but of that foursome, they were like the weak link.
And Denver showed it.
Yeah, right. I know. But this foursome, I could see all 4 of them winning. It's solid, top to bottom, all 4 teams. It's gonna be if you're in Buffalo or a fan and it can't miss TV because these are gonna be 3 awesome games, and I guess we won't delve too much into it because that's for next week. But oh man, it's as solid as they get.
Puck University will continue after a brief word.
Life is about making decisions. At BMW I, we decided it was time to reinvent the car from the ground up, making sure we were open for truly innovative ideas. We decided that the car we wanted must be electric, and it should be made of extremely light and super strong carbon fiber. And finally, we decided to make it more intelligent and added our promise of incomparable driving pleasure. We made all these decisions to offer you a choice. The all-electric BMW i3.
Yeah, let's wheel over to some of the other regionals, and let's start with one of the ones that, not the biggest one, but one of the ones that we got wrong. I think all 3 of us, me, and Josh, on the preview episode last week, predicted that Northeastern would come out of the Providence Regional, and about that, they kind of got smashed by Cornell. So, at 5-1, and I had the misfortune of getting to go and see that one in a game where the shots were as follows. You ready for this? Here are the shots. Northeastern won the shots 21-19. Cornell won 5-1. 5-1. They had 19 shots. That tells me a few things. Number one, Caden Primo, who's normally so solid all year, was terrible against Cornell. The first goal he let up was the softest goal I've ever seen him allow, and he stole games in the Hockey East tournament. He stole the whole series against Maine and lifted them to a Hockey East title this year. So what the hell happened to Caden is my question. Well, other than him signing with Montreal and me being a Bruins fan, I'm not particularly, with us being Bruins fans, I mean, I wish him luck, but I'm not particularly thrilled about that. Anywho, but yeah, Cornell, here's the thing with them. They matched up stylistically perfectly to what Northeastern does, because Northeastern tries to play with speed, they try to play with skill. Cornell, their identity from the beginning of time and will be until the heat death of the universe, their game plan, score early. Bo Sterrett scored 402 in for them. Score early and out-hit and out-muscle people into oblivion. Just work them, and grind to the bone, and don't give them life. And Northeastern didn't have the size to be able to match it, so it's an end to win-wise the best season that Northeastern's ever had. But they still haven't won an NCAA tournament. They haven't advanced in the NCAA tournament since 1982, when they defeated Jerry York's Bowling Green Falcons, who would win the national championship 2 years later to move on to still to this point, the only Frozen Four that Northeastern's men's team has ever played in. They haven't advanced since 82. Their last NCAA tournament win came in a goal aggregate series against Merrimack in 1988. Came in a best 2 out of 3 series. It wasn't a goal aggregate. In 1988 against Merrimack. They won the first game of their series and still ended up losing to Merrimack, and the only time that program has ever advanced. So, yeah tough way for the Northeastern season to end.
That one was certainly a shock to a lot of people. And it wasn't so much a knock against Cornell, because obviously they're talented. I think with Cornell, the question was, would their backup goalie be able to get the job done? And, who would have expected that it would have been McGrath over Primo having the better game? That's just the nature of the beast, right? He's had a tremendous career at Northeastern, and the one time he has a clunker of a game, it's when they probably need him the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tragedy for them. Cornell, of course, defeated by... They are unable to advance beyond the Providence College Friars, who had an adventure of their own. They trailed Minnesota State Mankato 3-0 after 11 minutes and 8 seconds of play. Josh Wilkins gets a power play goal to create some seed of doubt, and also Mankato had a goal denied right before the intermission that would have made it 4-1. But instead, it was 3-1 going into intermission. Vimal Sukumaran and Kasper Bjorkquist, this team is loaded up with fun names, tied the game in the first 10 minutes of the second, and then there was a major penalty committed by Connor McKay, contact to the head, in which he hit Vimal Sukumaran and just put him on the ice, and he did end up playing, but he contact to the head, you can't do that, so 5 minutes, and that resulted in 2 Providence power play goals. Tice Thompson and Josh Wilkins, Jason O'Neill with the empty netter. Providence wins 6-3 over the wins leader in the NCAA and Minnesota State, who, do we want to touch on the potential landmine of Providence playing in the Providence Regional and it being a home game, and whether or not this is a thing that should or will continue in the NCAA tournament? Because I feel like the Friar people might not be big fans of us for touching on this topic, but do we want to touch on this topic?
Maybe you.
Thanks.
No, I mean, I'm fine with discussing it. I predicted that Providence would beat Minnesota State.
Yeah, you did.
And I did feel comfortable that, remember, I said I didn't matter where they played them, I thought Providence was just a better team, and that was unfolding,
let me cue up.
It was unfolding. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
What's that?
Let me cue up the. I want to just let you know this is what I think of your prediction ability on that one.
Hell yeah! Hey, congratulations!
Congratulations, my friend. You deserve it, you got it right. I envy you greatly in your knowledge of college hockey, and I wish I could match you. So
that was only one of the very few that I had correct.
Well, you got half of the Frozen Four right.
Yeah.
So
I just thought that, as good as Minnesota State is, it's not the best division that they're in. They had some quality wins against good programs that were having down years, and I don't knock them for that. If BU comes into your building and you beat them, that's great, and they did that twice this year. I can't remember who else they had, but they had a few non-conference games against teams. I think North Dakota might have been one of the other ones where they just weren't what they usually are, and Minnesota State prevailed. But when it came time for the playoffs, they can't get it done in the NCAAs. And even as it was happening and they were up 3-0, I still felt Providence is going to come back. And was it because they were in Providence, or was it because the quality of Providence? I don't know, but I just felt like it wasn't over. Excuse me. And I was, I do think they were sort of aided. Things just went their way. But, in order to win, those are the things that have to happen sometimes. You have to get those lucky breaks. And, like if they were in the Fargo Regional and that's how it played out with Minnesota State up 3-0, I still think they would have came back.
Yeah, so let's...
You were in the building.
Yeah.
Was it that much of a factor? Were there that many Friar fans there?
Yes.
I know there were a lot of Northeastern fans and a lot of Cornell fans.
Okay. It was a completely partisan crowd. It was a crowd that showed up, and it was absolutely a Providence home game in the extent of actually on the ice and how they played. And they made an interesting note about that, actually, that it was the first time they had played in that building since the opening game of the 2017 East Regional against Harvard, when the Crimson, who that year also were loaded and were a machine, they beat them, I think, 3-0 with Merrick Madsen shutting the door and Providence not getting that many opportunities. So I'll touch briefly on the non-conference Mankato games. They hosted BU to start the season when the Terriers were one of the top teams, and Mankato was up there as well. The Mavericks won both those games 4-3 and 5-3. They split with North Dakota in Ralph Engelstad, won the first game 7-4, lost the second game 4-3. And I don't care what kind of season North Dakota's having, to get a win coming out of Ralph Engelstad is a magnificent accomplishment. To get a win coming out of that building.
Absolutely.
Then they played Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, who down years, but still they had a road. They swept them 5-1 in Mariucci, not an easy place to go into as well, and 2-1 at home. That was the last non-conference game until they went to the Desert Classic at the Gila River Arena in Glendale. They lost in overtime to Minnesota Duluth, and certainly no shame in losing to Duluth. That's a magnificent program. And they tied Arizona State, and this year there is no shame in tying with Arizona State. Trust me, it's one of the weirder stories we've had, and it's a kind of a disappointment that they weren't able to move beyond Quinnipiac. But it was a great fight for them, and so yeah, they had a tight run for themselves out of conference. They performed admirably. They put themselves behind the eight ball by committing far too many penalties, and Providence Regardless of where they played, they took advantage of their opportunity, and that is a team built for the postseason. And Nate Lehman is a coach designed to win championships. But I still say I don't know if it turns out exactly the same if you play that game in Manchester or if you play that game in Allentown. And because think about it. Mankato had to hop on a plane and fly when Cornell, Northeastern, and Providence all took buses, and you know, it's I can't help but feel as though the location and the seating played a part in it. Not that it was the defining factor, and not that Mankato couldn't have overcome it. Certainly they could have, and certainly they had their opportunities, and it didn't work out for them. But I still think that Providence had a little bit more of an advantage than most other. North Dakota playing in the Fargo Regional is the only other one that I think comes close. And to be fair, they lost their game against BU back in 2017 in, I still think, the best college hockey game that's been played in the last 3-4 seasons. But go back and take a look at that building and how that was a partisan crowd. The weekend in Providence, it wasn't quite that much, but it was on that side of this crowd. Cornell was the second best team that traveled. Northeastern traveled surprisingly poorly, and Minnesota State was just too far for them to really travel, and they didn't get the contingent that I'm sure they wanted. So I do think it had something of an impact on the way that weekend went. Maybe this is me being biased and not being a big Providence guy. I'm still pained by that one thing that happened a couple years back at the Garden, but I that's just how I think about it. If that makes all the sense.
Oh yeah, no, they're all valid points. They really. It's just to me, it's one of those issues where I see both sides.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You know, and it's just, it is what it is. They did what they had to do, and but it is something that moving forward, it does seem like almost on a yearly basis, North Dakota ends up in Fargo and Providence ends up in Providence.
Well, there's an interesting thing about it. So Brown is not bidding on this regional for the 2021 season, and that's because the NCAA basketball tournament is going to be hosting games at the Dunk that weekend when the regionals would end up being held for the hockey tournaments. So they're going to be going somewhere other than Providence in 2021 because the primary tenant there is the Providence Bruins, and that they would end up being on the road for basically 2 weeks if they were to try and hold both the basketball tournament and the hockey tournament there, and that's kind of not feasible. So that's what that situation ends up looking like. So it doesn't sound as though Providence, and by the way, I'm getting all that from Mark Divier of the Providence Journal, who's one of the best writers going right now, I think. So I don't know where we move the regional to next time around. I think we'll end up going back to Manchester because that tournament, that building, that setup is good for what they do and for the. I wish that they were able to draw more people, but I guess if you get UMass there again, if you get BU, who might improve, if you get BC or you get Northeastern up there, or if you get Clarkson had a good appearance and they would have turned out well for that championship game had they beaten Notre Dame in overtime. Which, by the way, that's the best game that we got to see all weekend. The overtime with a penalty shot in overtime. Yeah, it's an interesting place for where the regionals are for hosting. I mean, the Providence Regional for the team seating, that building's a great building, and I had a very nice time and a very good setup. The people from Brown really do a phenomenal job of managing that place. So, big props to.
Yeah, I think in New England alone, I think there's a lot of places that could really host regionals and do an excellent job, number-wise, event-wise, like things in the area. Like I enjoyed Bridgeport last year. I enjoyed Providence 2 years before. Manchester seems adequate. You know, like the building is a nice building. I don't think for the press it's pretty good, but
yeah. Hey, they had Coke. They had Coke in glass bottles, and let me tell you, that stuff is magic. That stuff tastes so much better out of a glass bottle than out of a can. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, they got it perfect. So
yeah, but I mean, you know, I could see Hartford would make a good building.
Yes.
Springfield has a good building.
Here's
Portland
the thing.
has a good building.
You got to keep in mind.
I don't know. I would like to see more of this.
You got to keep in mind with
That's just me.
Well, you got to keep in mind with Springfield, though. That's a home building for a team. That's a home building for AIC. So.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think they'll end up doing so. By the way, let's segue into the other thing that happened over the weekend, the one in which we were all wrong. So first, on behalf of myself and Josh Cummins and Jason Scales, we have this message to the good people from Springfield, Massachusetts, and American International College.
I want to say we are deeply sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry.
I think you get the point at this point. American International College, which was founded to serve French Protestants in New England, turned into the American International College that we know today. Had their first winning season in the history of the program at a Division I level. They won their first Atlantic Hockey regular season championship. They won their first conference tournament championship by beating Niagara in overtime, and they beat the team that a lot of people predicted to go to the Frozen Four in St. Cloud State. So, yeah, I think the whole world other than AIC was wrong about that one.
Yeah.
Guys, I remember, because I think that was as the UMass-Harvard game was winding down, I think, because we were both in Manchester, and I looked over to you and I said, AIC is leading. And your reaction was just, no, they're not going to do it, are they? And when it went to 2-0, when I pointed out that they almost scored twice, they hit the post pretty shortly after they scored their first goal, and they actually did get a puck by the goaltender, David Rennick, in the later bits of the first, but the buzzer had already expired and the clock had burned out, so we didn't beat the buzzer. So they had a chance to make it 3-0 before the intermission. When I told you that, I think your eyes just lit up and went, wait, no. Are they going to do it?
Yeah.
And so, believe it or not, American International College, a school of about 1,400 people who had no hockey pedigree in the past, now has major hockey pedigree by knocking off one of the NCHC's leading teams in the St. Cloud State Huskies. And I still am having a hard time of processing the fact that AIC won that hockey game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it still blows my mind that they pulled it off, and most of it is I witnessed AIC play UMass in Springfield in January, and it was a joke. UMass whooped them 6-1. It was over in the first period, and they just looked like they couldn't even, they looked so outmatched, and I just figured St. Cloud State just as good, if not better, than UMass. Boy, was I wrong.
Hey, boy, was I wrong, too. I thought St. Cloud was going to win a national championship. So, should we spend a little bit of time talking about St. Cloud and how this is the second time that they've done this, and how our friend Eric Burton, who covered those games, who got to go around and see those games. He lives up in North Dakota, writes for Inside Hockey, is our editor, so he posted all of our stuff. Thanks, Eric. I'm very sorry we didn't have you on for this one. I'll make sure that we get you on for future episodes. He has said that St. Cloud is a choker program. Is that overly harsh? And just what do you do now if you're Brett Larson and if you're St. Cloud? Just what do you do?
Well, I guess in some ways they're going to have a bit of an enema just between this year and next year because they do have a lot of graduating seniors. I would imagine they'll lose some players between now and then due to kids wanting to make the money. So it'll probably be a different culture going forward. Almost where you just kind of walk away from it. But I mean, that's pretty bad when it's 2 years running the number one team overall, number one seed overall, losing to the 16th seed Atlantic hockey champion.
See, the AIC one,
wow.
or excuse me, the Air Force one, I can totally forgive that because Air Force was they're not a regular Atlantic hockey program. That team is far too conditioned because of their status as a military school. I will 100% forgive the Air Force loss. The no disrespect to AIC, but how do you lose that hockey game? Just how?
I mean, they just got outplayed. I don't know if they. I mean, I don't know if they came into it thinking like we have this. I would think after last year you never have that feeling again, right?
Well, we know they never have it now.
Certain. Yeah, but I mean, power to AIC for pulling it off and sticking it in everybody's face, and they held firm with Denver for at least a period.
For really two.
But
I mean, for a big part of that game, they held their own, and they went toe to. They beat one of the best teams all year, and they went toe to toe with one of the premier college hockey programs in the Denver Pioneers, who. I thought they'd take a big step back with no Jim Montgomery and with a 29-year-old rookie head coach behind their bench. Boy, was I wrong. I think this has made it pretty clear why I don't gamble, because I mostly will lose, and I will go completely broke because I don't know things. But also, it proves that there's a lot of pride in some of those programs. Like Denver will forever and always be one of those teams that's competing to try and win national championships. And Carl grew up in that program, and you know what? AIC hung with them, and enormous props to them for stick taps to the Yellow Jackets for writing one of the best stories that college hockey had to offer all season. It really, really was a spectacular job by them.
Oh yeah. And seeing Gene Binder, who's the head of the officiating for Atlantic hockey, after the Notre Dame game, seeing him down below in the bowels of the arena. I mean, you could see just the joy that he had, knowing that AIC had knocked off St. Cloud State. Yeah. Just what it did for Atlantic hockey is it's amazing. And I can speak for myself. I get snobby when it comes to Atlantic hockey, because the quality of it obviously isn't as strong as Hockey East or the ECAC, which what we're used to.
Yeah.
But with every victory like that, I mean, it just grows and leaps and bounds, and power to them. I would love to have. It just adds more cachet to the region.
Yeah.
When it comes to college hockey.
It really does. It really, really does. And it's, good on them. Probably worth noting, though, that Denver moves on. They shut out both opponents. They're one of the first teams to shut out both opponents. They join UMass in moving on. Having done that, I think Wisconsin did it in 2006. BC did it also in 2006. BC obviously did it in 2012. They were the last team to do it then. And great turnaround by Denver as well. a really, really fun team and a very good job put on by the Pioneers. I'll look forward to seeing them in Buffalo. We have one final regional to take a look at, and not a single inside hockey person was able to get there. We were very apologetic for that, but we will try and do better in the future with that. Minnesota Duluth, a team that we all predicted on that they would move on to the Frozen Four and very, very possibly win the whole thing. They did exactly what we expected them. Play narrow games against competition we think they're better than and pull off. Also, I'm apparently not able to speak English, so yeah, a great job to Duluth, who they beat one of the best stories of the year. I keep saying that, but there were some spectacular runs. Bowling Green made the NCAA tournament for the first time in 29 years. For all the belly aching from UMass people about the program being in shambles, and rightly so. At least the program was never in danger of folding and going out of existence, like Bowling Green was. And this is after Bowling Green. There are 3 Division I hockey teams in the state of Ohio, and only one of them has a national championship. It's not Ohio State. It's not Miami. It's Bowling Green as the only one that has a natty from that part of the country.
Yeah, that one hurt. Because they had it. Do you know what I mean? They were 2 minutes and change away from winning, right?
Yeah, they had a 1-0 lead over Duluth with 2-something left. This was one of the games that I listened to the radio call, the Bowling Green radio call, on the way up from going from Providence up to Manchester before I flipped over to the UMass game. I wanted to hear the end of the Bowling Green Duluth game, and also overtime hockey is something special. And you know what? They had their chances. They had their opportunities to pull it off, and they just barely didn't have enough to get by. And also, it was the first time that these teams had met in the NCAA tournament since 1984 for the national championship game, which went 4 overtimes and was at the time the longest national title game ever contested. And Jerry York's Bowling Green Falcons won that game over Duluth. But this one, man, Ryan Bernard, who, by the way, signed with his pro team. He made 40 saves and allowed 2 goals. Hunter Shepard, I've been critical of Hunter Shepard for not getting a lot of pressure. This one, no, he made 30 saves and helped get his team to overtime. Only allowed 1 goal, and that came 16-23 into the second when Brandon Cruz off Max Johnson and Lucas Craggs. And Parker McKay, the MVP of the weekend, he had 3 goals. He had both of Duluth's goals against Bowling Green on Saturday afternoon/night. Yeah, there's not a ton more you can say about it than, man, Bowling Green. I really hope they don't lose faith and don't keep taking steps forward, because that has the potential to be a really fun program out in Bowling Green, Ohio. Yeah,
and it's I've been out there for a game, and it's a great environment. It really is. It's a nice rink. It's small. Yeah. But they packed it, and it gets loud, and it's enjoyable when you want to see them have success. I think there's good things in store for them, especially if they can keep Chris Bergeron. I know there's speculation that he might move on to who has an opening? Somebody has an opening.
Miami, Ohio.
Speculation. Yes, that he might move downstate, as they say. But hopefully he stays and continues to build that into a WCHA power.
I hope so. And I also hope that someone other than Ferris State can come out of the WCHA and win a tournament game. So let's hope that they're able to move on forward. The other game from that Saturday night, Arizona State, their season comes to an end. I'm very sorry, Sun Devils, but don't be too mad. You guys wrote join the line. College hockey's changing, and they wrote a great story against Quinnipiac. They battled back. Brinson Pasichunk, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. I'm very sorry, dude. Got them within one in the back half of the third. They just didn't have enough. Andrew Shortridge only faced 20 shots for the whole game. He faced 11 of the 21 that he faced in the game in the third period. And, it just wasn't quite enough for the Sun Devils to battle back. And we will be sending guys on to Joey Dackert has signed his deal with the Ottawa Senators, which is good for Ottawa because they have the bare resemblance of a National Hockey League team. And so they need absolutely any human being who can play hockey. I don't say this to goof on Ottawa. I say this to point out the fact that the Ottawa Senators are really, really bad. And the fact that they have a good hockey player coming in is good for them. That having been said, Arizona State. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, and much like Caden Premu, I feel like DeCourt unfortunately let them down a bit in this game because that was a soft goal he gave up.
One of those two. The O'Connor goal, I think.
First one.
Yeah, the O'Connor goal, I think.
Yeah, I mean that was just bad. And,
True.
I mean, maybe I feel that way because I thought Arizona State would pull this one off, but that was just a bad goal to give up.
I mean, to be fair, he faced 38 shots and stopped 36 of them. So they didn't lose it because of their goaltender. They also
not saying that.
Yeah.
But that was just a brutal goal to give up.
And they also lost. ASU lost an opportunity when Jared Gurley took a major penalty with just about 4 minutes left to go. He took a 5-minute major that put his team down a man for the remainder of the game, which was a really unbelievably stupid penalty to take. So they lost their opportunity.
I mean, and you can't give Quinnipiac that type of space.
No. Worth noting also that Quinnipiac moved on to play Duluth, and they didn't have the guns to keep up. They end up falling to the Duluth Bulldogs 3-1. They give up no goals in the first. They outshoot their opponent 12-6 in the third. They get a Craig Martin power play and extra attacker goal, but they can't quite get it back. Parker McKay with the empty netter after Krieger and Roth had the first two Duluth goals in the second and the third, respectively. And Duluth, their third consecutive Frozen Four. And is it fair to call Duluth a dynasty?
I would say yeah. I would say yes. Yep.
Well,
yep.
They won, for context, they've been to 3 straight Frozen Fours. They won, even though Denver was a machine in 2017, they didn't win the Penrose Trophy for which is the trophy named for the tournament championship for the NCHC. That actually went to Duluth that year, whom Denver defeated in the national championship game. So Duluth
only by a goal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But still. So they were the two best teams in the nation that year. Much as I know you as a Harvard person don't really like admitting that, or might not like admitting it, Denver and Duluth were the two best teams all year.
They were. That Duluth team was awesome. They really were. I mean, I mean, Harvard could have beat them, but they didn't. And they were just that Duluth team was just so good. And when did they win before? Was it what was that the year that they won it also?
2011.
2011. That's what I thought.
Yeah, they beat Michigan they beat Michigan in overtime in the in St. Paul to win their first ever national championship.
That's right. I remember that one now. I mean, they got it going on. I think any team that's in the NCHC and has a 500 or above record, in that conference is doing things right, because that conference is just
Duluth has won
It's
two.
not that much.
Duluth has won 2 of the last 3 NCHC tournament championships. They've been to the last 3 Frozen Fours. They've been to the last 2 national championship games. They're the reigning national champions. Scott Sandelin has won the Penrose for Coach of the Year. It is a spectacular, spectacular program that Duluth has. And I honestly think that Duluth is, and we're not going to make our predictions right now, I honest to God think that Duluth is the best team going in the Frozen Four right now. I think you have to give them the nod as being the team that you would pick if you were to make a prediction as to who would end up winning the whole thing right now. I think Duluth would have to be the overall favorite just because of that program is designed to win right now. And it's a dynasty. It's a dynasty of a program right now.
Yeah. And of all 4 teams, they're the ones with the most experience,
Denver is second.
Guys Denver is a close second, but, you figure it's just that they're Duluth is closer to having one, being the defending national champs, and they still have more left from that team as opposed to Denver just has the one class left over.
They have
from their national title.
They have the 2 classes, the juniors and seniors.
Yeah. So they're right there, but Duluth has seniors, juniors, and sophomores that have all been there, and
a head coach. Sandelin has been overseeing that operation the whole time. Carl,
the whole time.
David Carl was an assistant coach on that 17 Denver team that I will still say that Denver team is the best one I've ever seen. And my dad, who got to see that main team that in '93 that lost only 1 game, who is a Harvard alum. He graduated from there in the late '70s, so he got to see. And when Harvard was at its peak in the '80s, and he's gone to Agganis Arena a bunch of times. He has his law degree from BU, so he has a soft spot for BU. As he met my mom at BU, so it's predominantly a BU hockey house until we get to BU Harvard matchups. In which case, my brother, myself, and my mom all have BU degrees. My mom and brother both law degrees, me, my undergrad, and my dad has his Harvard education and his soft spot for his undergrad alma mater, and so I understand him going off. It's the only time our house is divided on sports lines ever, and it's a fun place. It's a fun setup, and it's a great time. It's a great sport. It's a beautiful time. Are we ready? So the Frozen Four teams, to recount one more time: Denver, UMass, Providence, and Minnesota Duluth. Congratulations to all of these teams for reaching college hockey's grandest, biggest, and shiniest stage, the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York. I know I will be in attendance for the proceedings. I've worked out my arrangements already. Jason, we're not sure if we're going to get you out there. We'll see what we can do. We'll try to get you out there. We'll work ourselves around, and let's hope you can get out there. Let's touch on one more topic briefly before we go. The Penrose, the Coach of the Year trophy has announced their finalists, and I just want to run over very briefly the people who have been nominated and the people whom I think are the favorites to end up winning it, and who I think will and should end up winning it. So the finalists so far, the finalists this year: David Carl, a 29-year-old rookie in his first year at Denver, who led his team to the Frozen Four. Greg Carvel at UMass, who did what UMass did. Mike Hastings at Minnesota State, who won the conference championship this year. Casey Jones at Clarkson, who was the ECAC Coach of the Year and won that conference's championship. Eric Lang of Atlantic Hockey, who did of AIC, who did what he did. By the way, Mike Hastings is a prior winner of this award in 2015. Brett Larson, who led St. Cloud State to the record that they did, but, let's move on. Nate Lehman of Providence, who is a prior winner from his days at Union. Greg Powers from Arizona State. Steve Rolick of Ohio State. And Scott Sandelin of Minnesota Duluth. Sandelin also a prior winner of the Penrose. So, of those individuals, Jason Scales, this will be one thing that I'll ask for a prediction on. Who wins that award? Because there's some really remarkable stories of developing great teams and great players out of all those guys. I know who you want to win, but who do you think will win?
Actually, I don't think you do know, because it's not who you would expect.
Well, I know who you want to win.
I mean, it would be great if he did. That being Greg Covell.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's done a tremendous job. But I think really, when you get down to it, it's one of those awards that, to me, whether or not they do win it, I would like to see it either be Eric Lang or Greg Powers, because what they did, what they have, was just nothing short of amazing. And for some of those teams, everybody feels that they can coach, but I mean, come on. I think that I could have coached St. Cloud State to, the NCAA tournament this year. I think David Carl doing it as a 29-year-old in his first head coaching job is pretty amazing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you still have Jared Lukasevich on your roster, and some of those jobs, they almost like coach themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Duluth, just throw the puck out there and let them play.
And Sandelin actually kind of does coach that way. He legitimately coaches that way. Sandelin legitimately coaches that way, in which he trusts his players enough, and that is a powerful feeling. But you know what? You have to know, the players have to know who runs the ship, and I guarantee you they know that Sandelin runs that ship.
Right. Right, and which is why I would give Kyle a lot of credit, because he's only a few years older than his players.
He's only 5 years older than me, for context. So first off, what have I been doing with my life? Second off,
and he's like 14 years younger than me. But it's like I think it should be either Powers or Lang, just because they got so much out of small programs. Yeah. I mean, I know that Arizona State has the wherewithal because it's such a big school, but I mean, they're starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible. And I think after that, I just have a hard time having it be somebody like St. Cloud, Minnesota Duluth, like the powerhouses, because that's what they do. That's where they specialize.
Yeah.
They're not known for their basketball prowess at those universities.
Right.
They're hockey schools, and that's what they recruit as hockey players.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I could see it going to Covell.
Mm-hmm.
Or Covell. However, because,
however we pronounce it,
nobody saw that coming. As good as they are, nobody, very few had them in the Frozen Four.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a just reward would be either Lang or Powers. Yeah, maybe even co-winners. Those are just amazing stories.
I mean, I really do think that I think Carvel will end up winning it. If for nothing else, it's an unbelievable story what he was able to accomplish this year with this program, and what he was able to get done with that team is just I don't think we're ever going to see that much of a turnaround, because UMass was terrible for years, and they not only are one of the best teams in the nation, they're decisively so. So I honest to God believe that it will end up being Greg Carvel's award to win. I definitely see your point about Lang and Powers. I think those both are spectacular stories. I think if Eric Lang had, if AIC had somehow gotten through Denver, there's not a possible argument against Eric Lang winning the Penrose. But that didn't end up happening. So I can't talk about things that, regrettably for their sakes, did not end up happening. So that'll be one of the awards. The Hobie Baker will be handed out, which we both think Cale Makar will end up winning that one. The Mike Richter Award, the Goaltender Award, will be handed out as well. I'm less sure about who will win that one, but I think we've run on a bit long here. So let's wrap this up. Jason Scales writes for InsideHockey.com, also writes on his blog at puckingoff.com. You can follow him at puckingoff on both Twitter and Instagram. I greatly appreciate everything that you've done, brother, and I hope that you're able to come out to Buffalo with me.
I hope so, too. You might have to stow me away in your luggage.
Let's see how that ends up working out. You can follow this podcast on Instagram and on Twitter at University Puck. You can follow me, Chris Lynch, at CC Lynch Wall on Twitter and CC Lynch 16 on Instagram. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, and Blog Talk Radio. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in and for being fans of college hockey and for enjoying this show and the ride with us. We will try and have a live edition of the show next week from Buffalo, New York, from high above the KeyBank Center, when we will discuss the upcoming games and preview those matchups in a bit more detail and preview the other award winners. Thank you to Jason for coming on. Thank you to all of you for listening and for all of you for being fans and sharing this with whoever enjoys college hockey. In the words of the great Tim Williams, keep your head up and your hits clean. And to all of the Frozen Four teams, we'll play this as our outro.
Hell yeah! Hey, congratulations.